whatever, right? Whatever it might be.
I'm just recording this so you can go over it again, please. So it's just so I've got it. Okay.
Oh, hold on. What happened?
Just say got it.
Okay, got it. Okay. Oh, do you know what happened? Where did my thing go?
Do you want to continue? No. Just share your screen again.
Stop sharing. Share screen.
Well, yeah.
Oh, it disappeared. Hold on.
You're clicking thing, so it's probably down in your bottom.
No. Oh,
sorry, mate. I just wanted to record this so I can actually, just get it all done.
No. Hold on. I think my thing disappeared. I don't know what happened. My Excel disappeared. Okay, I will reopen. Okay. Let me try again. Share screen. Okay, I need to start fresh.
Yep, got it. Got your screen.
Okay, can you see it?
Actually, it's good to start again. So I just recorded it. Let's like at the end of the day, I agree, totally agree. We should have the objectives at the top. Right?
Yep. And it's just really going to depend on the functional areas that you're concerned with. So at the end of the day, with the objectives, it should be primarily up to the business leaders to determine what the objectives of the functions are. So with the strategic is a unique one because it's often determined by the leaders, or it could be determined by a separate strategy team if they do have one. But usually with the objectives, it's the functional leaders that determine it. So as I said, the key things here are objective title. We say WHS. Objective description could be to ensure our people are provided safe working environment. And function, you need to assign them to function. You need to, so let's say service center. And
function, I can relate that to a site, which is good, or whatever it is. They can add that.
Yep. Whatever.
I'll always add that green, the plus and minus sign, because that's a great feature. Because then you can create your own.
That's right. You could, literally. I mean, the customers should have the flexibility to create whichever function they want to create.
When I put that in there, I've gone, if I put that in, and I showed some people, and they've just gone, wow, why don't you put that through the entire online WHS system, which I'm now starting to do.
Yep.
Keep going. This is good. I like it.
Okay, and then you can have the classification as well. So it could be operational in this case, or it could be compliance. You should be able to.
I've already got them, the categories.
Yep.
So do you want me to change categories to classification, or?
Oh no, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Really. It's just terminology, really, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
So I've already got that, which is good. Now I'm just, the objective should be at the top. And
okay, so I'll give you an example. So O1, let's call this O1.
Yep.
Now, what needs to happen with the risk is you should be able to, so the hierarchy will look something like this, O1, and then you've got R1 sitting underneath. And you could have R2 sitting underneath as well, or you could have R3. Does that make sense? So you can have multiple.
Because there's more than one risk to this objective.
That's right. So risk is, it could be multiple things, right? So it could be like here, for example, it could be the spread of virus, right? Risk is virus. So once again, risk title. And I might be, because I'm on the run here in terms of running you through this. I might miss some of the key fields that needs to be inputted, but it will give you an idea of the hierarchy that we're looking for, because I think that's really key.
What you've given me the idea of is that most of the processes that I actually do in hazard or incident and all these different things are a 3-step process, right? This is what you're doing. So for me, it's quite easy to add a first process of what are their objectives. From there, then they can assess the risk and add risk to those. And then there, they can develop the control measures like I've done. So to change what I've actually already done is not a big thing. And another first step process of objectives.
Yep. Makes sense. All right. So you've got risk description. So it might be coronavirus, COVID-19. Within service. Right.
You've also got reputational risk there as well, because if you
right. So yeah, that's exactly right. So risk category,
compliance risk, because if
you've got absolutely everything here. So risk, if the COVID-19 spread within the service center, it could be financial.
Yep.
It could be some organizations have health and safety as well. So you could have that operational, reputational.
Okay,
compliance.
But can I ask you a question here then?
Everything. So you need to be able to select multiple. Yes.
Okay. Can I?
Yep.
If they just selected, let's just say for an example, they selected reputational.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Do they do the control measure based on just reputational, or what you're saying here, they select multiple risk categories in that second step? Now I'm going to create. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then third step, they actually create the control measure and they link it to the risk category that they selected in the first option, so it creates all one document.
Then there doesn't need to be a risk category in the control section. I'll run you through that later. But basically,
how do they know that control measure relates to?
You just need to assign it. So say, for example, you create a C. Let's say this is R1 and this is C1. So ultimately, let's move this down here. You assign C1 to R1. So this is the hierarchy, remember? So you've got objectives that are linked to risk R1, and then C1 that's also assigned to R1. So you don't need to link it to risk category, because all you need to know is that this control is linked to R1, addressing risk 1.
Which is that risk. Yep. Okay.
Which is this risk.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Because there may be control.
No.
So
totally makes sense.
There may be control. So there may be control. So spread within service centers. So it could be, say, for control 1 might be around BCM, right? So business continuity management, right? Or C2 might be media, I don't know, media team plan. I don't know whatever it might be. The communications team, communication plan, right? e.g. to the media. C3 might be, and this is all addressing, so business continuity management, when you have that in place, it should be addressing operational risk and financial risks, right? For example, when you have communication plan, it's more reputational. C3 might be, but we don't need to know which exactly risk categories we're addressing, because one control might address multiple risk categories. And in most cases, they indirectly address all of them, a lot of them.
Yep.
So we don't need to assign it. So all we need to know is, C3 could be an obvious one. COVID-19 safe measures.
Safety plan, whatever it might be. Yep.
Yep. So e.g. like social distancing, sanitizers, right? Now what you will see is with this, C2, art, I'll show you another one. Let's say this was it. So I think you've got all the things in there, like likelihood, overall rating. I think you had everything in there, so I won't go through those in detail. But
I clearly can see, right?
Yep.
That I'm going to have the objectives to start off with.
Yes.
I'm going to have the risk. I'm going to relate them to multiple risk categories, right?
Yes.
In what I've currently got.
Yep.
And then basically the controls, it already does that, but I see where you're coming here.
Yep. So the reason why I say
the V1 version is going to be okay, because people are going to be happy with it, but this is going to take it to the next level, which is fantastic.
Yep. And realistically, I mean, if you're generating a report, what's really helpful, and people have moved away from using what's called risk registers. Now everyone's looking for what's called risk profiles.
Can you actually send me an example of that, please?
risk profile is exactly like this. So risk profile, what risk profile looks
An
like?
Excel spreadsheet or graph or graphs?
Just Excel, just Excel. But it could be color coded based on the ratings and things like that.
Yeah,
But risk profile ultimately is
that's
just,
where I was taking it to. So
yep.
because
So
I saw all these different exports of these risk registers, and they're all color coded. So
objective title, you can have the risk title,
Yep.
risk owner, risk rating,
Yep.
risk category.
Yep.
You don't need to have all these, but maybe just give the clients the option on what they want to actually see on their reports.
Yep. Which I was going to do. Yep.
Yep. Of course.
But I actually had all them anyway. I had literally, when they export an Excel spreadsheet, they can export it. It does it all. But here it and I actually went to I think it was this major corporation that had this risk register, and I literally said, I'm going to use that on top of the stuff that you said to create that export. So
Yep. And yeah, I mean, I don't think any big organizations these days use risk register. It's a thing of old, and not many people find too much value just looking at the risk register. So everyone's now starting to talk a lot more about risk profiles, which basically just means that they include everything, the full view of the risk and controls.
But I was actually going to create it into graph reports. That's what I was going to do.
You could, but I mean, it just depends on the use. I would say
you're saying the graph reports, an Excel spreadsheet will be suffice.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, well, that's easy for me. It's easy
and
to
then
do. The graph reports would actually take me ages to do. So it's
yeah, I mean, graph report. I mean, I think you're just talking about.
Just hang on one sec, Scotty.
Yeah, sure.
I've got to get my dinner.
Yep. Go for it.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all good. So yep. No, that's good. Feel free to eat. So you've got objective title, risk owner, risk rating, risk category, and then you've got risk causes. But this is not essential, I don't think, because at the end of the day, the risk causes just triggers triggers the risk management team to think about what the controls might be, what the suitable controls might be, right? So that's the benefit of actually explicitly stating the risk causes, but you don't really need to have that. I guess controls is
but no, you can have it in there without being mandatory, because some people are going to like it, some people won't.
Yep, that's right.
So when I create like the software program that I've created, I always try to create it that person's not going to want it like that person. He's want it like this. He wants it like that. So
yep.
So that's fine.
Yep. Actually, you've got risk rating, assess dates as well. And then control title, control owner, control rating, and you can. It really depends. Once again, these will be optional fields, but you can have control category, control type. Actually, would be more widely used term.
Yep.
And then you can have control last assess date. That's it, really. I mean, this is what a typical risk profile would look like, because so this is how it might look. So let's say objective title, you've got O1, right? And then whatever the title is. But then with the risk title, you might have something like that.
Well, you're literally copying the document that I was basing the system on, but the thing is that they didn't have the objective title at the start.
Okay.
So it's so exactly what you're doing there. You know how you got your subtitles relating to the objective and OCA stuff? They didn't have that. They just had the risk at the start, and then they had all the subcategories. So because my Excel spreadsheet was doing the same thing. So but what I'm going to do now, which I think is brilliant, is that I'm going to put that objective title at the start. So step one. And then I can just add these other things inside there. So the V1 of this corporate risk is fine, because like it'll do at the moment while I create this as V2. So it's which will get me these bigger kind of clients.
So this is basically hierarchy. So RC1, RC2, RC3, RC4. So the more you go to the right, the granular, the more granular it becomes.
It literally just like a tree. It just feeds out.
Exactly. So you can have C1, C2 back here again, C4, C5, and then you might want to assign C1 and C2 because it's the same control that controls the risk, risk cause. And once again, C6, C7, etc. Right? And then you've got the controller enough for all these. So this is how what a risk profile would look like normally.
The export. Yep.
And obviously you'll have to make it look a lot fancier than this.
No, I'll make it look fancy. So it's but I've already got. I literally based my export spreadsheet on something extremely similar to this.
Okay.
So because I looked at around, I would probably looked at maybe 10 different Excel reports, corporate risk reports. So and they're all very, very similar. So but the thing I didn't have, because they didn't have it, and yes, and when it's been a while since we talked. So all I got to do, I'm going to add that new category at the front of that corporate risk, right? That risk thing as objectives. So they can put that in, then it'll go stage 2 to the risks, then stage 3 to the controls. But I'm going to do what you've done there. If I categorize all these different things like I've done with the other sections, then that way they're going to, I got it. So that's pretty good.
And really the important thing here is the parent-child relationship, right? So you have to be able to link R1 to O1, and you have to be it all just needs to link basically. Is the key. I don't know. Did you want me to go through anything further?
No, just let me do that there, right? And let me do V2 on the development server. Before it goes live, then we'll go through it. But I needed to get V1 out there because
definitely.
It was, it's a bit of software kind of process. It was blocking all these other things that I needed to put inside the system. So that's in there, and everyone's happy with it because they are, right? But this now is going to take it to the next level. So let me develop this on the development server. It'll be pushed to the staging server, which is not live. Then we can go over it again, right? And then we can make changes, literally go, hey, what do you think? Live, bam, bam, no, boom, 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 boom. And then we change it before it goes live, version 2. I think that's the thing is that it's now in the system and it's got all these features. And
I think another thing that's really good is actually there's further to controls as well. If you want to go a little bit deeper, and if you want to actually improve it, even further, you can have what's called action plan. Let's say
every single control measure actually has an action plan. I've already done that.
Does it?
Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah. Our whole system. I always make everything.
Okay.
If you log an incident, end result, you got to develop a corrective measure to reduce the likelihood of that reoccurring.
Can
So it's
you put with the action plans, can you put controls as your parent?
yeah.
You can. Okay. So you can assign action plan to a control.
Well, actually, no. I assign it
So
to
so
the
what
actual.
I mean is, let's
I
say,
actually assign it to the initial risk, but I can actually assign it to the control effectiveness. Yeah, I can do that easily.
so let's say control effectiveness rating is ineffective, right? So you need to take actions to address that.
Yep.
So what needs to happen then is you would create an action plan, or so actually the hierarchy under action plan. Action plan might be, okay, implement BCM, right? Business continuity management.
Yep.
And then you might have subset of action plan, which is a detailed step as to how you're going to implement the action plan. So first step could be, write up policies and procedures around BCM. And that could be assigned to Phil
Yep. And
with the due date.
The system already does this with 5 other registers.
With others. Yeah. That's good.
So this is already in there, because I always make people accountable. You can write more than one action. You can assign it to a person by a due date. You can actually set that, and even that register where you saw it, there was red, orange, green. So if you've set 5 actions to that risk, for an example, it won't go green until all those actions are completed.
Yeah.
So you can actually, you can go to the action, like, you've got to remember, this is like 44, 45 modules all interlinking that I've linked it to.
Yeah.
So it's more than, so this kind of stuff is stuff that it's
That's
already
your bread. Yeah, your bread and butter.
But
yeah, it would be
actually done what you've added here now, right? Is you've got control and then control effectiveness, which I like, which I'm going to add in, because I'm going to change where I've actually got that effectiveness. Well, I've already got that in there.
You do, but just remove the risk of risk rating.
I need to move. Yeah, exactly. I need to move the objective to step 1, then to the risk, then to the control, and then that's just like I've done with the hazards, basically. So it's yeah, no, I like it.
Yep,
Give me. This is gonna probably take a month for me to.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Minimum, probably. So it's because I've got V1, I've got some other stuff I've got to get in there, but
yeah, that would be perfect. I mean, the thing is, I think at Suncorp
send me
at
that
least.
Excel spreadsheet, please.
Yeah, of course. Yep. I'll send it to you after this.
Yep.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, so the thing, in terms of the action plans at Suncorp, I think we basically have them assigned to the controls or the incidents, as you said, basically. So you either basically address the ineffective controls or partially effective controls, or you're addressing incidents and breaches. So that's how they're set up. Okay.
Okay. No, I like it.
So then you should have a complete end-to-end risk management, because at the end of the day, really, it's all about risk management, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you want to reduce it to an acceptable level. So, I mean, another thing that we don't have, but what I think would be useful, and we don't have this, but I always thought this would be useful as well, is almost like an exception-based reporting. So risk appetite. Have you heard of risk appetite?
I have.
The risk appetite is pretty simple. Do you know what it is?
Yeah. Yep.
You do know. Okay. Okay. That's really good, because not many risk professionals know what risk appetite means.
Yeah, because when I was doing my investigation, risk appetite kept on coming up all the time. And then when I spoke to a couple of people about it, other than you, right?
Yeah.
They've gone, okay, yeah, this is what we want to try to achieve. Do you know what I mean? So it's keep going.
Yeah, I think what would be really good, and this could be a really simple exercise for you from I guess building algorithms perspective, is theoretically, if you're managing risks well, it's not really just about making sure that the risks are moderate or low, right? Because your risk appetite might be severe or it might be high. Because you might want to, because if you're a growing company and you really want to grow customer base, for example, you might want to take high level risk. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So depending on what risks, because
it actually depends on the level of risk, really, that they're willing to accept. That's what it is.
That's right. So risk appetite just gives
risk
you.
Risk appetite is okay, are we willing to accept this?
Yes.
So it and yeah, because when I was doing all that investigation, it's I've come up a couple of times. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't every kind of process, but when I was doing the stuff after, we did some stuff, and like I when I create things, I really go into lots of different things and look what's out there, but it come up, and basically so. Basically, what the organisations try to accept, what's their objectives and what are they gonna, what is what am I gonna accept?
That's right. Yeah. So let's say you're driving a car, right, and you're getting to a destination, because this is how I always describe risk management, is that risk is really a simple concept, because risk is anything that interferes with the achievement of the strategic goals of the organization, right? So that's it. What is your strategic goal is, that's why you need to start off with the objectives, because in order to identify what your risks are, you need to first understand your objectives. So let's say you needed to get to Brisbane.
All right. So do you think appetite needs to be after objectives? Because
no, it doesn't need to be built into the higher. No, it could just be under the risk section here. So, I mean, I haven't seen any risk appetites being built into the system, but I think it would be really good. And the reason why I say it's simple.
That'd be a point of difference, correct?
It would be. I've never seen it at any organization or risk systems that I've worked with so far. But basically, risk appetite is, let's say you've got a car, right? And you want to get to, let's say you want to get to a destination. So let's say this is your destination here. Let's say this is your final destination, right?
Yep.
In order to get there successfully and on time, right, before your competitors get there, you might need to travel at a certain speed, right? And you might set your car on a cruise control at 100 kilometers per hour. So your risk appetite could be, I don't know, depending on how much risk you're willing to take to get to a destination quicker than others, and really weighing it between the financial and operational benefit versus the compliance, pitfall potentially. The speed limit might be 100 Ks. You might set your cruise control at 105, for example. I'm just saying, just as an example.
Yeah, I totally understand.
So that might actually be your target range, or let's just say target range. This is a target range. So
this would relate to a lot of companies, like transport companies, right?
Yes.
You're a truck driver. You got to get that goods down there at 9 o'clock at night time, because if you get it down at 9 o'clock in the night, then you're going to make this much money. If you don't, you're going to get penalized, whatever it may be, right?
Yep. So it could actually be, I mean, let's just hypothetically say that the firm's ethical, and let's say the speed limit is 110, right? Your target range is potentially 105 to 110. So you always have a target range, right, when it comes to risk appetite, because that's ideally your operating range. This is the most ideal operating range, which is the target range, right? Then your risk appetite, which is your risk tolerance. And what I'll get into what risk appetite does. Your tolerance might be 130 kilometers per hour. So what we're saying is, okay, the speed limit is 110. The ideal target range is 105 to 110, but we don't expect to hear from you unless you go over 130. Does that make sense? And
Yep.
so once that limit is breached, risk tolerance is breached, this is when it often goes to the board's audit committee, board risk committee, and the board, basically.
Yeah.
This is what prescribes the point of escalation.
I tell you, if you're a board and you received that and you accepted that and it's in writing, you'd be stuffed.
So what you're saying, what we want to do here is we've set risk appetite, and usually, I mean, sometimes it's not in direct measurable level, but I think in almost all cases you can assign a rating here. So you know how I gave you the hard figure here, 130 kilometers. So in a lot of cases, like credit risk, for example, you can say, oh, we don't want to be rated anything below AAA by S&P rating agency, right?
Yep.
But then I mean, even in that sense, you can actually risk rate it based on the risk category. So what I would love to see in a risk system is actually have the risk appetite. Because do you know how?
You know what I'll do then, right? With the risk appetite, I'll add the ability to them to add their categories and add that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So they can create their own appetites.
So what this will do for the risk team in terms of reporting is actually, if I only need to ever escalate stuff, and this is what we've been driving a lot, is that actually the board doesn't need to know every single risk rating, like who does, right? We just want to know if it's above risk appetite. So let's say,
right, that makes sense.
Let's say R2.
I understand. If if it's okay, yeah, good, yeah, go with it. But if it's above our risk rating and appetite, yeah, we want to know before we make a decision, move forward on that.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Makes sense.
And in certain areas of risk, right? Certain this level of risk title, for example, you might have an important risk that is so strategically important that you're not willing to go above low in terms of your risk. So you might have cases. This is an example. Let's say your risk appetite for certain risk is high because you're willing to take that risk to grow your customer base, right? And let's say your risk rating based on all the controls that you have in place is still high. Well, board still aren't interested because they already said we're willing to accept that level of risk. But then let's say this second risk, R2, has to do with your workers' safety and health. And maybe their risk appetite is low because they said, actually, we really want to make sure that we're looking after our people, because that is that's what's going to support the strategy of the company, right? Because we need to look after the people. It's people first company, right? So their risk appetite might be low, but then their risk rating might be moderate, which is lower than the high of R1, but the board might still be interested based on their risk appetite. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm looking up now, right?
Yeah.
There's different types of risk appetite.
So that's right.
I can actually put them in as they've actually got type risk tolerance, for an example.
Yep.
So it's basically, I'm looking. This is a great website. So it's I could add these categories, right, into. Beautiful. I got it. Yep. I'll add that in. Right. Right. Let me add that category in. Right.
The risk appetite. You mean risk appetite column?
And because I'm now like looking up all the different 8 types of risk appetites that they're saying. So it's
what are they?
Okay, so they are.
Can you share your screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you unshare your screen?
Yes. I just have, I think.
Yep. Let me get that up there. Right. You ready?
Yep.
You see it now? Yep.
Yes.
Am I going too fast, or you're right with that?
No, I'm fine.
So it's so like what I would normally do, right?
Mhm.
You've given me that idea. I'll now look at more than one site other than this, and then create what I do. So it's
Yep. You don't need to overcomplicate risk appetite though. Let's just keep it at one simple rating.
yep,
Because I don't think we need to build anything into the system. So yeah. So basically, the way which this would normally operate is you will have a comprehensive risk appetite statement for the company, which is almost like a standard for the company, right? But I don't think we need to get into any more than that, any more than just having the rating there as a
well,
field from a systems perspective.
on your Excel spreadsheet report, right?
Yep.
Put in what you want in that, and then I will build the fields inside the system to actually be able to create that report, if that makes sense. So
Sorry, can you say that again?
So, okay. So basically at the end of the day, what I would like you to do, the Excel spreadsheet that you were building just then.
Yep.
So for me to add fields and do all these different things in this section here,
Yep.
is easy, right? It's
Mm.
because what it'll do is when they publish the register or publish the individual item, right? Generate report on this, but we're going to talk about we're going to move the objectives to the first bit, right? As we discussed, they generate the PDF and it's going to give them a report on everything that all the whole process within that thing. So even the appetite. So so if you send me the Excel spreadsheet, then I can create the fields that need to be there in the system to create that report. That's what that's what I'm trying to say.
Yep. Okay. Sure.
So it's but I think we're literally there anyway. Like when we're going through that, like I'm stopping share now. If you go back to that Excel spreadsheet that you actually had developed. So the good thing about it, at least we've got something in there at the moment, which is good because it's picking me up clients. I know that that's what it's doing, but this is going to take it to the next level, which is even better.
Yep. Yep.
So it's,
I think risk appetite is really
and we're not far away. All I got to do is add that first process with objectives. I'm going to add the appetite in there as well. So it's and that's in the risk page. You would say, correct?
Yes.
So it's so I'll add that in the risk page with categories, but they can add their own categories and so
then just make sure we can link it to the objectives.
Link it to the objectives, correct?
Yep. And then same with controls. Controls need to be linked to risk.
See, the one I've already done, I've done the risk with the controls. The controls actually open up a separate register for that risk, and they all link together. That's what it is. I've just got to add that first bit, and then I'm going to add these other little bits that you've actually gone on tonight, and the actions are already got. That's already in the system. That's already working. So, and that's already working in this section as well. So I've got risk control actions. So what you've said, I got to move objectives to step 1, which is perfect, which I'm just going to create another register relating to objectives, and then that will produce a report, and that'll be, okay, right. All right. Give me a bit, and that's good. I like it.
All right. Awesome.
But the good thing, at least we've got something in there at the moment, right? From the initial stuff, which actually people I've shown some current big clients and they really like. But if I'm gonna, you see, you're in a different level, right, than the target market that we're usually at. But if I can get this right, then I'm going to get that level that you're at. And
I think just really the key is ease of use. And I know you've focused massively on that. So ease of use. Don't need to overcomplicate things.
Ease of use is my major goal, basically.
Yep, that's right. And we don't need to have a lot of fields. Like I don't even think you need all the risk, sub risk and all those things that you've had. I don't know, unless the clients are asking for it. I really don't think you need them. I mean, maybe just have as I said, as an optional field, but we hardly ever use sub risks.
I'll give an example of that, right?
Because I think sub risks, if you've got an objective and you've got multiple risks that are assigned to an objective, then that it almost is a sub risk, isn't it?
Yeah, no, okay. If let me go back to stop sharing you, and I'll just show you just my philosophy there. Just
Yep.
so you understand.
Or maybe what you're talking about is the risk causes as I talk about it. Maybe they're the sub risk.
So let's look at this one here, operational risk relating to weather. Okay, if I go control, see how there's more than one control measure here?
Yeah.
So you can add as many control and they can keep on going, right?
Yeah.
Each one of those control measures has its own action items that they can actually do. Okay.
Yep.
To reduce that risk relating to this control measure. But if I've entered one control measure, well, obviously one control measure is maybe what you're thinking, right? Is that instead of having a whole control register relating to this one risk, I keep on just add to the control measure of this. So it's only one that you can actually see that there's 5 control measures relating to this risk.
So, yep. So sorry, Phil, just with this view here, with the control, with the controls view, we need, I know you're aware, but we need to remove the initial rating, new rating, overall rating columns, and we need to add in control effectiveness rating. So control effectiveness rating would be, typically it would be fully effective, partially effective, or ineffective.
Well, that, I did actually have that in that. Remember, I had that in the fast like edit.
Yeah, but yeah, we need them on that
control
page.
Effectiveness, basically, control effectiveness. We had that there, right?
Yep, but we need to bring it into that table.
That table, I can do that. That's easy.
Yeah, and just remove all the risk rating stuff as we discussed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
I'll look at that. So because I'll put it this way, I've shown multiple people and they like it that we enter a control measure. Well, the initial risk rating was severe. We add a control measure because
no, it's just then your hierarchy will be altogether thrown out. Trust me. How are you gonna be assigning that new risk rating to a risk? Like how are you gonna have risk as a parent entity when you've got separate risk rating for individual controls?
So okay, well, if you're saying this here is an initial risk rating, we'll just say that, right?
Yeah.
And then have a basically new risk rating. So there's no overall risk rating. That's what you're saying.
No. There needs to be there can't be any risk rating to a control. Control assessment is purely control assessment, not risk assessment.
If I go to
your control will determine your parent risk, i.e. risk rating, but yeah, we should completely separate the control assessment and risk assessment. They're very separate things.
If I identify a risk,
yep,
and then I implement a control,
yep,
the residual risk rating must be lower.
Yes, so you'll reflect in that parent.
That's what.
Yeah, you reflect it in the parent of that control, which is the risk.
Yeah, but this is what the initial register is doing then. So you're looking at, if I go back to the risk register, it was the initial risk and now the overall rating. The initial risk was really high, but now we've reduced it by implementing all these control measures.
So what's the initial rating and overall rating? I think we need to just be clear on what we're talking about. So are we talking about risk rating or control rating?
So this risk rating was the rating of that risk when I add a risk.
Right? Okay, so yep.
The initial risk rating of this risk is what I select here. And I'm trying to reduce that. That's what I'm trying to redo. That's what I'm trying to do by implementing control measures. Just like you do with the hazard.
So let's just change the actual wording from initial to inherent, because that's just what all the risk professionals use.
Right, inherent. That's what I'll do. I'll change that to inherent, right?
Inherent risk rating, and then your risk rating after the control's been implemented will be residual risk rating.
Exactly. I'll just change it to that. It's just wording. That's what it is.
It's wording, but risk strictly stays within risk. That's what I mean. Like it shouldn't be in control.
No. Like if you go through the hierarchy of controls with hazard, if you develop a control measure for a hazard, for an example, once you develop the control measure, you've got a residual risk. After you
and so you'll go and update the risk rating.
You wouldn't even know that you wouldn't know that residual risk until you've actually implemented or developed that control measure.
That's right. But what I'm saying is after the control assessment has been made, you need to go and update the risk rating, not your control rating.
But that's what I had. That's why you actually have that third step where you actually update it to go, yeah, this is updated. So you've got every control measure you actually implement, it updates, you update the overall residual risk.
So are you updating the parent, i.e. this section here?
Yeah, absolutely. Your update. So this is what this register highlights, that this was the inherent risk, right? I'll change that. But now, after all your control measures, this is the overall risk rating. Because you've implemented, for an example here, 4 control measures, and those control measures and now reduce that risk from whatever it is to nothing.
I think we just need to clarify that we're talking about risk rating here.
Yeah, we are.
Like this is just purely risk. So let's just call it risk inherent rating, risk residual rating.
Yeah.
Or you can just
that's terminology. I'll just change them. That's fine. I can change them.
Yep.
That's that like, and then you'll understand that like that there works. That works because every time you implement a control measure for that risk, the overall or residual risk has to be lower. Well, you want it to be. You want it to be lower. So
you want it to be lower, but not. Yeah, I mean, it might move like certain likelihood scales, for example, but it's not always going to lead to lower overall risk rating. But
you determine that. You might say, "Oh, this is not. It's going to make it higher." That's what this is here. This is what it started.
Yep.
This is where it's at when you actually implement all those control measures. But at the moment, they're outstanding.
But this isn't what I'm talking about, Phil. So I'm fine with this view, except for the terminology. But if you go back to the controls view, where was that controls view?
Just here.
Yep. So this is what I'm talking about here with the controls view. So we can't make references to risk rating in your control assessments, is what I'm saying. Because, as I said, it's the group of control and the overall control environment that would ultimately determine what your residual risks are.
No, you know what I'll do then? I'm still going to
does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally agree, but I'm going to agree to disagree. Right, yeah? So I'm going to have the top line as the overall current risk rating. And then underneath, if they want to expand, they can see all the control measures that they actually did to do that.
Yeah, you can have that. Yeah.
And then
so you're almost talking about the risk profile that we've just been generating, right? So you want to show risk and controls at the same time.
Yeah, no,
which is basically the risk profile.
And yeah, this develops. Believe me, it develops that kind of process. But what I'm going to do.
You're just
I'm going to add a new line at the top. Right. The new line is literally this is the overall control measures in
overall. Yeah. So you can have at the high level. You can have this is the risk level.
Yep.
You can have this is the inherent risk, this is the residual risk, and then underneath have this view. But rather than having initial rating, new rating, you can just have the control effectiveness rating.
Yep. And just like view more, and you can go in detail.
Yep. No, happy with that. As long as there's no reference to individual control. So against that line item, so for FOCON, for example, the first one, as long as there's no reference to risk rating against any of the controls there. So yeah, you're right. Risk rating should sit at a level higher than controls.
So okay. So what I'll do.
So you can't risk rate every control, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you're not risk rating controls. Controls only get assessed in terms of their control effectiveness.
All right. So what I'll do, that top line,
yes,
will be the overall result, right?
overall result of
all the control measures in for what's going to happen. I'll change this terminology up the top, right?
So overall measures of control effectiveness or risk.
That's what I'm going to add a column in here and control effectiveness. That's what I'm going to do.
Yep.
Right? So that will be in there. And then what they'll be able to do is they'll have an expand, see all the control measures that they actually had. So because they're going to need to see, well, okay, how did you actually control that? Yeah, we implemented all these control measures. This is the one when we implemented this control measure that reduced the risk dramatically because this is what we did.
Yep.
So I've got to be flexible for more than just one client or one train of thought.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I've
got to be flexible because you're going to want it one way, right?
No. This is not what I want. This is just technically incorrect. It's technically incorrect to risk rate your controls because it's definitely not correct under any like risk management standards or anything like that. You never, you never risk rate your controls.
If I go to the hazard register and do implement actions, the residual risk has to be lower, correct?
Well, it just depends on your rating matrix, right? So, but yeah, let's say hypothetically that it is low after a control.
So therefore, you need to know the new risk rating, correct or not? The initial rating was critical, but now the residual risk is lower. Like if I go to, say, an example, I'll use this as an example, right? So if I want to develop a procedure relating to a safe work method statement, you've got a procedure, potential hazard, you've got the risk, but after you actually implement the control measure, you've actually got the residual risk, haven't you, or not?
So what is this view? This is activities view.
In the hazard process, just like with risk, you've got a risk.
Yep.
And then when you actually implement control measures, you must have a residual risk. You must, because the risk is lower. What I'm in that section there is recording what the residual risk is.
What is the hazard? So are we talking about incidents?
Well, this hazard is like, say, an example, the stairs broken and I've got to get it fixed, or the thing. But this risk rating, this risk register is different. It's risk is, as you said.
No. So hazards and incidents work on a different rating system altogether.
Yep.
Because enterprise risk is risk at a high level, right? So it follows the enterprise risk management framework, which are certain risk rating matrices, right? So the way in which you would actually classify incidents and hazards or breaches or whatever is totally different rating scale to enterprise risk management framework matrices. So typically, you would have, for incidents and hazards and things like that, it will be a very simple rating system, high, medium, low. And they'd be based on a separate standard altogether. And really, it's just judgment call, right? Because I mean, incidents need to be flexible enough and easy enough to understand for anyone without access to without access to the enterprise risk management framework. So if you think about someone in the workshop, for example, they're not going to get access to ERMF, right? So it just needs to be high, medium, low. Like, where do they rate it in terms of incidents? They probably, I don't know. Like, I mean, if you actually want users to be using it properly, then you wouldn't want it to make it complicated so that they'll have to come up with the residual risk as well.
No, they don't. No. The user doesn't come up with the residual risk.
Who does?
The management does. If I'm
How?
if I'm the WHS officer or the corporate risk manager or whatever it may be, I'm coming up with that residual risk.
So incidents, the only way in which the incidents are usually managed is someone raises an incident, they assess it as high, medium, low, and then once the incident has been addressed, it's just closed and it's done.
Yeah, but we're not.
So we're not talking about so you're talking about hazards, right? So when you talk about hazards, usually temporary, isn't it? So there would say, for example, it's a spill on the floor, or it's someone got hurt, or
No, that's an incident. It's not a hazard.
so what would be hazards?
Basically, at the end of the day, a hazard is all about
Yep.
risk management. Is that you've identified the hazards in your workplace before you actually.
So like spill, right?
Yep. Beg pardon?
Like a
So
spill.
if I have a chemical factory,
Yep.
I would actually identify the hazard as it could be a chemical spill. So then
That's right. That's right.
is I come through this process there and identify the hazard. Then I develop
Okay.
the risk, and then I
okay.
develop a control measure. All right. And you go through the hierarchy of controls.
Do you need the control measures, or do you just need actions?
No, you need the control measures.
Like, can you give me an example?
I'll give an example of a forklift. Collision with pedestrians, my favorite subject.
Okay.
So basically, if a forklift was going to hit you, the risk rating would be number 1. It'd kill you, right? As per your matrix, as in strain standards matrix. Then through here, you would actually go through the control measures. Can you eliminate it? Well, obviously you can't. You need the forklift. Can you substitute with something easier? Well, no, you still need the forklift. Can you isolate the person from the risk? Well, the answer is yes. You would actually develop designated walkways, a warehouse management plan, and all those different things. Can you minimize it from engineering means? Absolutely. You could actually put that, a light on the forklift. Most of them come now with lights. It's this is Australian standard. This is straight out of the Australian standard book. So can you reduce it from administration? Yeah, absolutely. You can actually implement inductions. You can implement signage. You can do this. Can you do it from PPE, last point of control? Yeah, you're going to wear high visual gift vest, all that kind of stuff. And then what you're doing here, you're implementing the actions to implement these control measures.
Yep.
And then what this is, makes a person accountable. But this is all recorded and put into the system. And that's what it does. So that is a typical hazard process. That's what it is. So you're looking at the thing that needs to be added in here is, which is in an upgrade, is that after you implement these control measures, what is the residual risk of this control, of this now? And the answer is that it might have been risk rating 1 because that forklift is likely to hit that person in the warehouse. But if you implement all these risks, the likelihood might be a 4. So it's so the risk rating the residual risk is reduced dramatically.
Okay, so can I just ask? So with this module here around hazards, is it in any way linked to your risk module?
No,
it's not. It's completely separate.
Completely separate.
Okay, well then that's fine.
So that there is as per Australian standards.
Yes, that's fine, because I'm sure they use different rating system to the enterprise-wide risk management rating system.
So it's but the risk thing, that's why I created that.
Because hazards will be very. Yep. So that's fine from hazards point of view. That makes sense. But from a risk management point of view, because I think what you've got there is individual hazards, right? So that's looking at a level much granular to the risk register, and you will work off a separate set of rating system, right? So when we talk about risk registers, and you're talking about 1-for-1, so you've got a control. Well, that the group of controls that you're talking about under the hazards module, for example, will contribute directly to the mitigation of the hazard risk, right? That one hazard risk. Whereas when we talk about the risk management system, the enterprise-wide risk management system, we're not talking about 1-for-1 relationship, which is why we can't approach it the same way. Does that make sense? We can't approach it in the same way because one control that you're talking about won't directly lead to the mitigation of the risk that you're talking about.
That's why I've actually got you the ability to add multiple control measures there.
That's right. But that's why I'm saying you can't have the residual risk in your controls in your risk management system, in your corporate risk management system, if that makes sense. Because you've got to always look at the overall control environment and how multiple controls.
You must admit that if let's just say I'm going to use Peter Warren as an example here again.
Yep.
Right? Their biggest exposure, one of their biggest exposure is weather.
Yes.
Because if it hails,
yep,
they lose multi-millions of dollars.
Yep.
So how are they going to reduce that risk of losing multi-million dollars? Well, one risk might be they put covers over all the cars. Two, they watch the weather report to move the cars. Insurance, all these different things. Well, each one of those there, if they just get insurance, is that going to minimize the risk? They're still going to have to pay a premium, right? So the residual risk rating is still, okay, acceptable maybe. But then you're looking at, if they built a cover all over those cars, what's their risk rating now? The risk rating is basically zero. So you're looking at, but by adding multiple kind of risks and that kind of stuff, so yeah, they'll still have their insurance. They'll still, well, actually, it might be that they put covers over the building, the risk rating might be low, but now we've got insurance and the covers over the building to show that we actually tried to reduce the risk of that thing. Well, then it's going to minimize the risk.
That's right. That's exactly what I'm saying. So it's the combination of two controls that's reduced the risk rating. No. The difference between what you're saying and what I'm saying is, I'm saying you can't assign residual risk rating to individual controls. To an individual control. So basically, you can't have risk rating for your controls because controls are strictly controls and you can only make control assessments on controls. The risk assessment process is separate from the control assessment process.
It can't be.
It is. No. Just hear me out.
If I implement a control measure relating to a risk, I'm going to implement more than one control measure. It has to be lower.
It's lower, but you've got to look at the aggregate level from a risk point of view. Because as you saw, when we worked through that hierarchy of objectives, risks, and controls.
This is where I think you're leading to. You ready? If I go add control and I do this and we do control measure, boom, 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 boom. And what it is that I'm going to update this, add another control, add another control, add another control, add another control on this one page instead of the entire register, right? And then obviously, then it would be the initial risk rating was this. The overall risk rating now is this because we've implemented all these control measures on that one page. That's where we're thinking different. But
No. What I'm saying is, with controls, you only ever need to make control rating assessment. You don't associate with the risks. The only way in which you would associate with the risk is when you consider all the controls that you've tested relating to that risk. That's when you can make separately an assessment around the risk rating.
That's what I just said.
But this isn't the view. So when you say control there, right?
Sorry, I'm just trying to eat my now cold dinner. So let me just have a little bit because I haven't eaten since 9 o'clock this morning. So go. Hello.
So yeah, I think at the end of the day, you just need to implement the hierarchy that I showed you. That basically risks are assessed separately to controls. Controls under control section, you only ever assess the controls. You just keep it completely separate from risk assessments.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example, right? You talked about the insurance and the cover, right? So Sorry, Gemma, I will be there soon. So you've talked about the two controls, right? So let's say, for example, let's say the risk from hailstorm is severe, right? Or high, right?
Yep.
And let's hypothetically just say the risk from having an insurance policy takes it down from high to medium, and same with the cover, it takes it from high to medium, right? If you've recorded all your residual risk rating there, what would be your overall residual risk?
This is why.
So this is Phil. Can I just share my screen with you?
Yeah.
Because this is really, maybe I'm not explaining it well, but it shouldn't be a difficult concept. Hold on. Okay. Okay, you've got risk. Damage due to hailstorm. This is R1, right? Let's say so inherent risk is high. Okay, let's say you've got residual risk because control 1, C1, C2, got insurance, C2 is cover. Okay, so based on your analysis or based on how you think about this, Phil, what you're saying is you've got to assign the risk rating to individual controls. So for C1, your inherent risk is high, your residual risk is, let's say medium, and high and medium. Okay, so if you've assigned it to at the control level, what would your overall residual risk be?
As per the system I created, if you've added insurance is high, residual risk is medium.
Yep.
Cover is high, residual risk is medium, but them together, the risk is low.
Yep. But how do you come to that conclusion? Because it might still be medium.
Well, you put medium there. But the thing is that that's why you need 3 different processes. You need
no, definitely not. So what I'm saying is you're talking about the overall control environment, right? So you've got to assess it together with the other the multiple controls that you have in place.
That's what I've done. That's what I'm assessing.
No, but you can't have this. I'm telling you, Phil. Just take my word for this. I mean, if you don't understand it, then just take my word for it and just don't include the risk ratings here, please, because it's just not right. It's technically wrong under any risk management standards. You never ever risk rate your controls. That's not what that's not what control effectiveness rating is for.
If you implement a control measure, surely the risk.
No. But just Phil, I don't want to. I don't want to go on to explain this anymore because I don't think. Yeah. I mean, I'll just tell you what the right answer is, and if you can just implement that, that would be good. Because I don't want to talk about this anymore. To be honest.
All good. Yeah.
So only thing you need here is control effectiveness rating. This needs to go, right? They need to go because they don't belong in controls.
The section, it just doesn't be in the register. That's all it needs to be. That's what you're saying. So we're just agreeing to agree. That's what we're doing.
Agreeing to disagree, you mean, or?
So I'm saying that control effective ratingness is just afterwards to say this one, basically in that register, it says, it's effective or partially effective, whatever it may be, after they've implemented all these different control measures.
Sorry, I don't understand you. Can you say that again?
Let me just go back, think about it. I'll work it out. But I mean, I've shown this to quite a substantial amount of people. So so All good. So let me think about
So
that.
so hold on. So when you come up with the inherent risk here, so what is your inherent risk? So are we talking about the risk of not having an insurance policy, or are we talking about
No,
the ultimate risk damage due to
the
hailstorm?
inherent risk is in column C. It was high because hailstorm damage. And then implementing a insurance policy, after you implement that, it's going to be medium. And then we go, you know what? Yeah, we're not going to accept medium. We want to get really low. So we're going to put a cover over it. So the initial rating was
Your assessment here is wrong because your residual risk isn't medium. Because if what we're saying is if the combination of these two controls results in residual risk of low, then that's what it should be all throughout.
and that's what it ends up being. That's what the register
No,
highlights.
but then you've got inconsistencies because now you're saying so. Do you see the inconsistency here, Phil? Because the risk is inherent risk of damage to hailstorm. You're saying is high here.
Yeah.
And then it's medium up. Your residual risk is medium, but then now at the higher level, you're saying it's low. So there are inconsistencies.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm saying that once you implement all those control measures, it'd have to be low. So if you only got one control measure, it might be medium. If you put two control measures, it's going to be low. If you might have 5 control measures there, and the end of the day, the initial rating was high, but the end result is going to be low. And part of the reason why it's going to be low is because you've implemented more than one control measure. So what you're saying is, like, I'm identified that you're implementing a control measure. It must reduce the inherent risk rating. It has to. It has to. That's just philosophy. So
no, it doesn't have to, Phil. It doesn't have to. No,
well, I'm just saying.
In practice, it never works
if it
like that.
doesn't,
Trust me.
then you implement
No, no, no,
control measures to
no. That's
reduce
not.
that initial.
No. In practice, it never works like that. Trust me, because you know why? Because you've got that rating table, right?
Yeah.
You've got the matrix, which has multiple areas where it's still high or moderate. So yes, a control can reduce maybe, for example, likelihood by 1 level, but that doesn't mean overall reduction in residual risk rating. So you're no matter how good the control is, you can sometimes never reduce the amount of control to low. Like I'll tell you an example: cybersecurity. Unless
I'll give an example.
no,
You
just hear
don't
me
rate
out,
it
please.
as a residual risk as low. Then you rate it as still high.
That's right, but all I'm trying to say is you don't assign residual risk or any risk rating to a control. That's all I'm saying. The controls need to be assigned to risk, not the other way around.
And they are. So
How?
exactly way is if you are going to do a hazard process.
So no, that it doesn't work like that. Trust me, Phil. Corporate risk just doesn't work like that. Control is just control. Control feeds into risk, right? At the higher level, at the parent level.
You didn't say that you can develop control measures to reduce the likelihood of that inherent risk. That's what I've created. So I can't understand where you're coming from. You can implement control measures to reduce the likelihood of that inherent risk of high. And each time you enter a control measure, it reduces the risk depending on what it is. How can you say that that doesn't work?
No, because you're talking about the higher level risk here, Phil. Because if your risk is, say for example, we don't have an insurance, we might not have an insurance policy, then it's 1-for-1 relationship. But in many or in almost all cases, risk is controlled by many controls.
Exactly. That's why I had many controls.
That's why you need to. What I'm saying is, once you've done all your control effectiveness rating assessment, this is the last time I'm going to say this, Phil.
Yeah.
But
Because
once you
I
assess,
don't think you're listening to what I'm saying because
I am listening, but what I'm
overall
telling you is
rating,
it's technically incorrect, is what I'm saying. I hear you, and I know what you're trying to get to, but all I'm saying is, from a risk management perspective, it's technically incorrect. last time I'll say this, it's technically incorrect, right?
Sure.
So what would happen is with control effectiveness rating, you would assess all the control effectiveness rating and then go, yes, the overall control environment looks good. And then therefore, you will determine what your residual risk is after considering the effectiveness of all controls.
And that's what I did. That's what it does.
No, but what I'm not arguing with you on that. I'm just saying you can't have these against individual controls. That's all I'm saying. I know you've got the overall control risk environment, risk rating.
As I mentioned, what I'll do, right, in that control section, add another control, and then they can do the overall. That's what I said right at the start there, after you said that. So instead of making it 5 different control measures all on that one page, just has that one thing. This is the inherent risk. This is the residual risk.
Sorry, I don't get that. Can you say that again?
Let me draw it up and you'll see it.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, I understand what you're saying, but you're not understanding that I'm on the same page, but I've taken that I've added control measures all in that one register, but I'm going to add all the controls on that one page where they can add it to categories and all those different things, like we discussed, multiple categories, to actually do an overall risk.
Sorry, are you going to share screen?
I don't need to because you've already seen this overall anyway. So what I'm going to do with this control measure here, I'm adding control measure here, and I can go through here, add another control, add another control, add another control, add another control, add another control. Then they can go down to forget about new risk rating. Just that was the initial, this is the overall. So that would be initial rating. This would be the risk.
No. That risk rating, the risk stuff needs to go in separately, in a separate view. Because what I'm saying is you need separate section for risks, not, it can't fall under controls is what I'm trying to say. Yes, there, risk rating. So the hierarchy should be risk and then controls.
How can you do a residual risk if you don't know what control measures you've actually implemented?
Well, you come back to it after. So you initially fill out the inherent risk, and once you completed your control assessment, you will fill out the residual risk.
That's what you're doing in that field right there.
But it's sitting under the wrong area.
It goes
because
back
it's
to
not
the risk,
because it's not
back
control.
to the risk register, to the initial or inherent, and then overall risk rating. That's what it's doing. So it's doing exactly what you were saying. I'm just going to add them all on one page.
But it's sitting under control, which is very confusing. Because when you're assessing risk, it's not a control. So can we have it under risk, not control?
How can you actually assess the risk and the overall risk when you haven't implemented a control measure? How can you have that? You can't. You assess the risk. The risk is 1, for an example.
Or maybe just create a separate heading, residual risk rate assessment or something like that. So that it's clear that we're not talking about controls. If that makes sense. Can you go back to the other view?
You got to develop control measures to reduce the likelihood of that risk. So I'm just going to change these titles. But I'm also going to make it all on one page. So there's not more than one control measure. It'll just be one.
Sorry, can you draw it out on an Excel or something like that too, so I can visualize what you're saying?
Mate, it's getting late and I haven't had my dinner. It's sitting there, it's cold. So I'll go over it. I'll review what you've said, but
yes,
I've shown this to multiple people and every single person agrees with the initial risk is this. If I implement this control measure, obviously the residual risk of that control measure is lower. Overall risk, if I implement multiple control measures, has to be lower. It has to be. It's just That's how that it is.
Phil, I'm telling you, that's not how it works in practice.
Maybe for a banking
I just don't. I
or
just
something
no.
like that.
I mean, no. All places I've worked at. I mean, I've looked at risk management systems for like 50 organizations.
All right. Well, let me have a look at it and I'll review everything and I'll see what.
I just don't think you're listening, Phil.
I'm listening. So it, but I don't think you're listening to me as well. So it, but I'm listening. So it, but it, for me, it's like when you identify a risk, you're going to implement control measures to reduce the likelihood of that risk. That's what that's doing. And I've printed out multiple export sheets from multiple companies, and that's what they do. After listening to you,
What, have it against individual control.
It's what I'm trying to do there. I'm going to, as I mentioned from the discussion tonight,
Yeah.
I'm going to add, instead of individual controls in that one register, you can add, and then overall you do a risk rating. You won't risk rate each control measure. I said that. So the change is that I'm going to make in that after tonight is that if I come to this control section here and add control, add the control measure and all that kind of stuff, instead of doing this rating here, they can add another as in control measure. Then they can do the initial rating, overall rating, those two fields there. So this new risk rating for each individual control measure will be gone. That's what you're talking about. So, and then that way there, it'll go, this was the initial rating of high. After all the control measure, the rating was low.
The only control that you need to make here, Phil, is just to bring the residual risk into under that risk rating section. That's the only change you need to make.
If I come, let me go add risk. All right.
Yep.
I've got initial risk rating.
Yes.
How can you have a residual risk when you actually haven't implemented a control measure?
You just need to be able to come back into the risk view and then edit the residual risk after control assessment.
I'm doing it at the end of the, you don't have to come back here. That's 2 steps. Why would you do that when you can actually do it once you've implemented all the control measures? Why would you actually enter all those, go to the control measures and enter all of them and then go, oh, save, then come back and then edit to this and then update this? People,
because I mean, the control assessments will take a long time. So it's not like control assessment effective and then done. Like you actually need to, document what you've done to test the controls, right?
Well, the good thing there is that I'm not sure you're understanding. When you actually implement the control measures, it's updating here all the time. If you add another, it'll update it. So they can see it. So they can come back to those control measures as many times as they wish. So that initial rating is there. That'll be in that page there when they add it. You don't have to go back to initial rating to actually update it, because you'll keep on, as you mentioned just then, you're adding control measures to reduce the risk rating. That's what you're doing. So each time you update it, this will be lower because it's picking up that last risk rating you put in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay, let's just leave it there for tonight. I will send you the view, and I think I think it's really just confusing for me because we're currently talking based on this view, which doesn't have the hierarchy that we've talked about. So I'll send you the Excel spreadsheet, and if we can catch up again in a month time or something like that.
Yep,
that'd be good.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right, mate.
But yeah, I mean, I think just the key takeaway from today is you've got objectives. You can have multiple risks assigned to objectives, and then you can have. I think just understanding that hierarchy is really important.
Yeah, well, I'm going to add an objective page in step 1 of this process.
Yeah, and realistically, Phil, I think what would be great. Can I just share my screen? Like just from a usability point of view. Okay, so just from a usability point of view, if we can just have like buttons like this, right? So let's say you've got the objectives view, like at the very top, if you've got objectives, risk, controls, plans, for example. And if you could just go into these buttons.
Yep, and that's what I was doing because I've already got that in hazard and I've already got that in incident.
Yep.
So
And just making sure
you can look at incidents, you can look at all the investigations, you can look at the corrective measures, and you can look at actions. So
yep. And if we just make sure that we don't mix up risk to controls, that's the key thing. I think we're mixing these two concepts up a lot. We need to really separate them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I go into the risk view, only things that I want to see is just risk. Risk 1, risk 2, risk 3.
That's exactly what my stuff does. That's what it does. So anyway, I've taken what you've said.
Yep. C2, C3, C4. That's the only thing I want to see. But in your reporting capability is where you can generate this view, the risk profile view.
Yep, and that's what I was doing. So literally with that see the fields that join together to do it. That's what I literally found an Excel spreadsheet as a corporate risk section that I used as an example of what exported. So
okay,
all good. So I need something to eat. So
okay. Right, cool. I'll send you this. I'll chat to you later. Enjoy your dinner.
all right, mate. Thanks.
All right, see you, Phil. Bye.